Hello friends, my name is Gorilla, and today I must admit something. I kind of hate playing Venthyr. Sometimes. Let me explain. While Venthyr is still an amazing covenant for Mythic Plus in several dungeons, over the past months I've been working on a new Kyrian build that takes into account how healing functions in M+, and why, in several situations, especially pugs, Kyrian has the potential to take the crown. In this video, I hope to shed light on several key nuances in the Kyrian build, why I'm planning on playing it in progression level keys unless something major changes, and the importance of new blood and experimentation in the game. Before anything can be said about how to play Kyrian, it's important to know why, and there's a few different factors. For one, the nerfs of Venthyr, mainly to the Legendary itself, severely crippled its grip on M+. Now, Fallen Order is up roughly every other pack, normally on a 1 minute and 30 second cooldown. Even with Herb buff factored in, on both bosses and on packs, Kyrian will have a longer CD uptime, and at that, be more potent of a cooldown. This is mainly due to the way damage is dealt in M+. Most mechanics come out in a 10 to 12 second window, such as Infectious Rain or the Raging Masks and the other side, giving perfect timing for Kyrian's Legendary, Call to Arms. And when your Chi runs out, there's still about half the duration of Weapons of Order, meaning it's a perfect spot healing tool for tanks or on pulls where random damage goes out, such as Scribes and Sanguine Depths. Kyrian also deals more theoretical damage through Soulbinds, with more favorable traits to improve our output. So to summarize, Kyrian has higher theoretical damage output, higher cooldown uptime, and cooldowns that work better in the M+ mold. After hearing something as bold as what I just said, Kyrian can seem unstoppable compared to every other covenant. However, that is not the case. There are still numerous issues that we have to go around. For one, and maybe the most important, the higher theoretical DPS output is not always true when comparing to Fallen Order and Weapons of Order on a pack-to-pack basis. While yes, even if Kyrian can handle large damage moments in a more fluid way compared to Venthyr, on several packs, tanks and DPS will need healing after the Chi window, either forcing you to sacrifice Invoke Chi or sacrificing DPS uptime to heal. Kyrian is also a lot more restrictive on cooldowns, forcing you to be in melee during duration to get any value. This can be an issue in specific sections of dungeons, or almost unbearable in others. Mana will also be drained more often due to the increased globals abundance such as Essence Font, and more mana being spent on the latter half of Weapons of Order, leaving you more dry from pack to pack. Even with downsides, I still think Kyrian has more potential in the high pug scene, but please know, no build is perfect. As stated before, Kyrian's main strength only applies when being in melee, and that applies a lot for when the build works and when it doesn't. For one, there are dungeons, and also group comps, where Kyrian is not favorable, due to damage patterns and mechanics forcing you out of melee. While slim, there are two dungeons that live rent-free in a Kyrian Mistweaver's head, Gambit and Miss Satyrna Scythe. Both these dungeons have issues at varying degrees, which is something to be noted. Miss is a dungeon where Kyrian is actually playable, but it's a lot more difficult to pilot compared to its counterpart. However, there are still things to note that sometimes don't apply anywhere else in the build. This mostly applies to two bosses, Ingra and Tridova. Ingra has the issue of pushing you out of melee fairly often due to puddles on the ground, which leads to difficulty obtaining good Chi windows compared to other dungeons. The damage on the first boss also breaks many molds that most dungeons fall behind. Damage is less fast and sporadic, but long and tedious, which is okay for the most part, and the latter half of weapons can deal with it. Tridova is less of an obstacle, but still is one nonetheless. Like Ingra, you're forced out of melee, but the damage patterns are much more forgiving than the previous encounter mentioned. This being said, Miss still holds plenty of potential for Kyrian, and going it won't cripple any chances of timing the key. Gambit is the one key I don't think Kyrian should be played in all too often, and it's for one simple reason, the final boss, and one of its main mechanics, Collapsing Star. Collapsing Star is similar in vein to Ingra, long drawn out damage that fully removes you from melee range. But what makes it worse is one Call to Arms Chi won't be able to fully cover a star unless you have an incredible range player helping. Fallen Order is a much smoother CD for this encounter, and even though a majority dungeon actually favors Kyrian, the last boss and to some extent the second boss push it away slightly. With that out of the way, Kyrian rivals Venthyr in almost every single dungeon to varying degrees, shown here. Pretty good odds for the underdog of the season. All these dungeons hold small nuances for the build, but from key to key, not much changes. For talents, nothing changes from what we're used to. We still go the exact same path as we did even back in Season 1, except this time talents like Miswrap gain even more punch due to the amount of 3 enveloping miss gained throughout the key. There is some debate whether Spirit of the Crane can be used in specific scenarios over Manatee. However, Manatee adds another mini CD to the kit, which is something still needed no matter what covenant you're playing, making Spirit obsolete. For Soulbinds, there are a few crucial parts that are necessary for the build to work. For one, always go Mika Nikos, every single time. With that, make sure to go double potency, those two being Jade Bond and Replenish and Miss. After that, make sure we go double endurance, and to pick up Hammer and Genesis. The Soulbind tree should look something like this. There are two main legendaries to keep your eye on this season, and thankfully both were already being used at Venthyr, those two being Tear Morning and Ancient Teachings of the Monastery. Both have extremely different uses, but will be used frequently from week to week. Tear has several strengths, but for the most part, it will only shine on Tyrannical or Grievous keys where bosses get more difficult. It has two main uses, making Chi-Ji windows even more powerful than they already were, and allowing for consistent Vivify cleaves when no more CDs can be used. For example, on Postmaster, not only having a more powerful Chi-Ji during fan mail helps, but on downtimes being able to consistently Vivify cleave to keep the group healthy is something that overpowers our other options on those weeks. The only downside is there will be occasional DPS downtime when those stressful healing moments happen. Not all dungeons require Tear on certain weeks, but several do, such as Plaguefall, Streets of Wonder, Sanguine Depths, Halls of Atonement, and Spires. And now we return to the bread and butter of modern fist weaving, Ancient Teachings. It's another legendary with several interactions with Kyrian, and it's mostly due to the way healing functions with the build. Normally, Essence Font is commonly used either before a Chi-Ji ramp or during if hots fall off, meaning for a majority of the dungeon, you will have Ancient Teachings up in a combination with another cooldown. This adds an extra level of pad to our throughput, while also allowing for more contribution to DPS on a single target encounter. It is important to know, however, that Ancient Teachings loses most of its value as pulls get larger, Rising Sunkick being the only button occasionally used on packs like that. Stats are another area where nothing really changes when swapping from Venthyr to Kyrian, so the priority does not change. As it stands, there are three good stats: Crit, Verse, and Haste. Haste and Verse are personally my priority currently, Haste being highly important due to the increased globals in key moments. You can also pick up a small portion of Mastery, only around 100 if you feel the baseline Chi-Ji doesn't pack enough punch. Now we're on to the big question. How do I play Kyrian, as Kyrian hasn't been touched since 9.0 for a lot of the community, including myself. While the build is fluid and has many ways to be played, there are some general tips to give on both cooldown usage and how to properly use those CDs. Cooldown should be used in a similar fashion to last season, this time being a mix of using weapons on one pack, GG on another, or both if there's a pull that's scary, which is a rare occurrence. In many ways, current Weapons of Order reminds me of pre-nerf Phone Order in the way that it's used, but always remember to look at the route beforehand and know which pulls you know for sure will be tough. Using Weapons of Order on a single target is a lot less fire and forget as we're used to with Fallen Order and requires a bit more prep work. At the start, you want to make sure to use Essence Font before weapons, then the general combo without any of our prep would be Thunder Focus T, Weapons of Order, Rising Sun Kick, Tiger Palm, Rising Sun Kick, 2-stack Enveloping, Blackout Kick. From the opener and when Rising Sun Kick is on cooldown, you can either choose to do Tiger Palm, Blackout Kick, 2-stack Enveloping Miss, or you could choose to do Tiger Palm, Blackout Kick, Spinning Crane Kick, 3-stack Enveloping Miss. I only recommend using Spinning Crane Kick like this on boss fights where there's 2 or more targets out and it's okay to press, or a fight where you need an instant cast spell. Another thing that's useful on boss fights is to prepare your Weapons of Order. How we accomplish this is by stacking 2 to 3 Teachings of the Monastery stacks for Tiger Palm, pressing Thunder Focus T, Weapons of Order, Rising Sun Kick, then a 2 to 3 stack Blackout Kick for a wicked powerful heal. This is useful in several situations, such as third boss in Sanguine Depths, Masks in the Other Side, or Portal Guardians in Theater of Pain. Using Weapons of Order on AoE is a lot more simpler than on single target, and mirrors Fallen Order almost to a T. The same preparations are done, such as using Essence Font, Weapons of Order. However, after pressing weapons, the main button you'll be pressing is Spinning Crane Kick. You can of course still use a 3 Enveloping Miss, however on some pulls, not even that is needed. Overall, Kyrian is now my go-to build for high M+ keys. I encourage people to continue to theorycraft and come up with new builds. If it wasn't for my wild testing, I don't think Kyrian would have been picked up as quickly as it was. There's still a lot more coming on how to play Kyrian, but this should be a good stepping stone for anyone wishing to try. I'm just so happy my little goofy Kyrian build is finally getting some time in the spotlight. If you have any questions on the build, you can leave a comment down below or come over to my Twitch stream and watch my Kyrian keys live. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, I would appreciate it if you liked and subscribed. As always, my name is Gorilla, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.